What's up YouTube, Saf here on Super Saf TV and welcome to another Super Saf style camera comparison, this time between the iPhone X versus the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. So in the usual style, we'll be looking at both the front and rear facing cameras and our images as well as video too. Do also look out for the audio icon in the corner of the screen, and that will indicate to you which device the audio is coming from, and we'll be switching between these two to give you guys a good idea of the differences in audio as well. So we're currently outdoors, we're using the front facing cameras on both devices, and let's go ahead and test out the stabilization from the front facing cameras. So we're just walking right now. Beautiful, beautiful day. Now let's go ahead and run. Now we've moved on to the rear facing cameras. This is a really good test of dynamic range performing at 4K 30 frames a second. Now both of the cameras have a telephoto lens as well, which means we can zoom in, and both are also optically stabilized when at ×2. So it's going to take a bit of a walk with both cameras here. Switch back to the regular, and we're just going to walk a little bit, and now we're going to run. Now we're just trying a slightly different situation here with an overcast, and let's go into telephoto. And just to test out stabilization at telephoto, we're going to be walking a little bit. Might be easy to see here. Stabilization. Let's go back to wide. Move around to this side, and we're just going to walk a little bit. Now just testing out the autofocus on the iPhone X. Seems to be doing really well. Now with the Note 8, man, that dual pixel autofocus is just rapid. Just look at that, boom. So that was the video. Now before we move on to images, let's look at what we're working with here. For the front facing cameras, we have 8 megapixels on the Note 8 with an f1.7 aperture as well as autofocus. On the iPhone X, we've got 7 megapixels with an f2.2 aperture. Now for the rear facing cameras, things have never been more similar. We've got a dual camera setup on both here. One wide as well as one telephoto, which is going to give 2 times optical zoom. Both cameras are optically stabilized on both devices, and we have very similar apertures as well. The Note 8 with a slightly wider aperture on the wide angle lens. Now if you want to customize the look of your Note 8 or your iPhone X, then definitely check out our sponsor for this video, dbrand Skins. They've got a huge selection of skins for lots of different devices, and I'm going to be leaving a link to them in the description below. Also disclaimer, all images have been taken on automatic. I haven't tweaked any of the settings, and this is to keep things as fair as possible. Now kicking off with some selfies, you can see here that the Note 8 is slightly wider. This is for images, it's not the case for video. And it's also got much better dynamic range. You can see that blue in the background. This has been completely blown out on the iPhone. And this is something that I've noticed consistently on many iPhones. From the front facing camera, highlights can be blown out. This is the case for both video and images. Now we do have an option to blur the background from the front facing camera on both devices. It's portrait mode on the iPhone and it's selective focus on the Note 8. And in this situation, the Note 8 actually seems to be doing better, but I do think that's because it has better dynamic range. Moving on to a slightly different situation, and once again, I think the Note has better dynamic range, although the situation is quite tricky with the light coming from the background. We still have a bit of blue in the background of the Note. Now trying out the blur on this situation, the iPhone is doing better. And this is something that I've noticed on the Note when trying to use the selective focus. You do need quite some distance between the subject and the background for it to work properly. And you can see here, because we do have this mammoth in the background, it hasn't done a great job. On a side note, I'd like to say that I think the Pixel actually does better than both of these, but that is for another video. Now moving on to low light selfies, the Note 8 brighter here. You can see more details in my face as well as in the background. Using the front facing flash, I think the Note 8, although it is brighter, it has washed out the image slightly. The iPhone, not as washed out. I think this is going to come down to your personal preference. Now in outdoor macro shots, I think both are doing pretty good here. I'd say the color of the flower was in between these two. The Note 8 does seem a tad sharper, but overall I think both are doing a really good job. Now in outdoor wide shots, I think both are doing good once again, but the Note is more vibrant. Also seems a tad brighter here in this situation. Using the telephoto camera on both, once again, both doing really good. The Note 8 a tad more vibrant once again. Now I wanted to test out the dynamic range of both of these, so I shot directly into the sun here. And here I would have to give the edge to the iPhone. It does seem to have better dynamic range, and it has maintained those highlights better compared to the Note. Using the telephoto camera, once again, the iPhone, better dynamic range. You've got more detail in the highlights as well as the shadows this time. Another tricky dynamic range situation. The Note a bit more vibrant here, but once again, the iPhone does seem to have better dynamic range. Now let's move on to the portrait modes or live focus on the Note 8. This is something that I know a lot of you guys like to see. And overall, both of these are really doing a good job here. We have barely any defects in terms of the edges. The Note 8 does seem a tad sharper. Trying out another shot, and here I do think the Note 8 is better. It's brighter and it's also sharper. Slight differences in color, which I think will come down to personal preference. Now one last test on portrait mode. I just wanted to test out the dynamic range while we're in portrait mode. Here I think the Note 8 is doing better in terms of maintaining those highlights. On this mask you can see that the highlights are slightly blown out on the iPhone. Now on the Note you can adjust the blur after the fact, so you can decide how much blur you want. On the iPhone you do have studio lighting, which will let you add some effects after the fact. Some of these work quite well, some not so much. Now moving on to some low light shots. So we're outdoors in low light here. I think both are doing really good here. We've got the moonlight in the background. The Note does seem a tad brighter, but there's not really much between these two. Now a situation with some more tricky lighting, and here I would have to give the edge to the Note. We've got more noise on the iPhone. The Note 8 has done a better job of clearing up that noise. A final shot in low light, once again both doing really well here, but the Note tad brighter as well as a tad sharper, I would say. So there we have it, the super SAF style camera comparison between the iPhone 10 and the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. Overall both did absolutely great. Now when it came to front facing camera images, the Note 8 is wider with better dynamic range overall. You will, however, get better portrait mode images on the iPhone 10, and that is because of all of those additional sensors at the front. And for video from the front-facing camera, the Note 8 I would say was better overall again, with better dynamic range. It was also more stable, although for video it's not as wide because it does crop in to give you that video stabilization. Now for outdoor images, I think both were very, very good. The Note 8 more vibrant. I'd say the iPhone had better dynamic range overall, however. Telephoto cameras on both were absolutely great, and the optical image stabilization also definitely helps. For video from the rear-facing cameras, quality-wise, both were very good. The dynamic range actually differed from situation to situation. When we were shooting directly into the sun, the clear winner was the iPhone, but when we were shooting away from the sun, then the Note 8 seemed to have better dynamic range. Overall, however, I think the iPhone did have better dynamic range for video compared to the Note 8. You've also got 4K at 60 frames a second on the iPhone, as well as options to shoot at 24 frames a second. This is something that you've not got on the Note. And you've also got 1080p slow motion on the iPhone. You've only got 720p slow motion on the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. For the background blur effect, I think both actually did a great job, but for me, I did prefer the Note 8, which was sharper, and also because you can edit the blur after the fact. Now for low light, I think it was close, but the Note 8 would win for me overall with less noise and brighter images. For audio, it was actually much closer this time. The iPhone did seem to be a little bit louder compared to previous models, but we still have stereo audio on the Note 8 versus mono audio on the iPhone. So overall, I would have to give the win for audio to the Note 8. Now camera comparisons have never been closer before. Both of these devices performing exceptionally well, and they're definitely some of the best smartphone cameras that you can buy right now. That's what I think anyway. What do you guys think? Definitely drop me a comment below. Let me know. If you want to see more images from lots of different devices, then give me a follow on Instagram. I'm at SuperSafTV. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then please do hit that thumbs up button for me. It really does help me out. And if you want to see more SuperSaf style camera comparisons like this, then make sure you have subscribed and switch on notifications. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on SuperSafTV, and I'll see you next time.